Oh, this is gonna be crazy. That was great. All right, hello everyone, and welcome. Oh my, I actually have to apologize very briefly, ladies and gentlemen. It's too hot in my room for me to be sitting in here without a fan pointed at me pretty much at all times. But hello everyone, and welcome today to another episode of SpraynPray1000's Verdicts, starring me, SpraynPray1000, as I review some of the games that I've played recently for my channel on YouTube. Okay, and I'm actually going to try and keep this brief because I'm kind of scrunched for time right now. But today's episode, we're going to talk about Bioshock Infinite, a game that's in a franchise, the Bioshock franchise, that I've never played a game for, really. I played the demo for Bioshock 1 a couple of times, but I've never actually sat down and said, okay, I'm going to play this game to its conclusion, and, you know, that's going to be that, and I've never done that before. So this game was definitely a first for me, among other things. But Bioshock Infinite, was it a good place to jump into first thing, you know, for someone who's never really played a Bioshock game before? I have to say definitely yes, okay? And now let me very briefly say that this game has received a lot of critical hype. It has received, you know, numerous awards and, you know, Game of the Year nominations or whatever, a whole bunch of awesome stuff. And basically, do I think that Bioshock Infinite deserves this kind of praise? Because plenty of games get this kind of attention, but how many of them actually deserve them? Typically less than half. You know, it's kind of the thing that they don't earn this sort of rating. So I guess the question I'm going to be answering today is, does Bioshock Infinite deserve this high rating? So first things first, let's analyze, you know, the various parts of the game. Okay, let's talk about, I'm not sure if I want to do story or gameplay first. Let's do gameplay first. The gameplay of Bioshock is fairly similar to, I guess, the previous Bioshock games. I remember from the demo of Bioshock 1, and some gameplay I've seen of those games. It looks very similar. It's a first-person shooter. You control a man who basically has guns and also these abilities called vigors at his side that he can use, and they're basically, I wouldn't say magical, but they're, you know, sort of sci-fi abilities. Like, one of them lets you throw fireballs at your opponents that turn into grenades that then explode, and another one lets you make people levitate, and another one lets you bring people to you, and another one lets you shoot electricity out of your hands, which is ironically the one I used the most during my playthrough, pretty much to the point that was my main vigor, and it's the only one I really use. Now, when we talk about guns, okay, there's this standard variety of weapons, you know, nothing that you haven't seen before. You have your pistol, your magnum, your shotgun, your rifle, your submachine gun, you know, all that kind of stuff. You've seen this before in a game. Sniper rifles, launchers, etc. And for the most part, the game, in terms of like gunplay and, you know, just leveling up your abilities and such, the gameplay is pretty much similar to, you know, your standard game, that where you can upgrade them, you can make it more powerful, you can reduce certain aspects of it. You know, this is the kind of stuff that's been a staple of this sort of game for quite some time. Now, in Bioshock Infinite, you purchase these upgrades from their corresponding vendors using money, which you acquire just by, you know, running around and picking it up in the game. No big surprise there. We've seen this kind of thing before. What else is there? Now, there's also other you know, avenues to the gameplay. There's, for example, because the game is set in a gigantic floating city, there's various methods of getting around. At some points in the game, you're going to be riding on zeppelins, which serves almost as on-rails sequences. Some points you'll be also riding on gondolas. There's also these, I forget what they're called, but they're like the grind rails from Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic Adventure 2. Rather than grind on top of them, though, like Sonic does, you have this thing on your arm that you occasionally equip it's a context sensitive thing. I think it's called a sky hook or a sky claw. I think it's a sky hook. And basically what it does, it allows you to move very quickly along these rails. Basically, like if you've ever seen an action movie where they shoot a wire and then they like latch onto it using this wheelie thing that lets them roll down. And I forget the name of this stuff right now. You're gonna have to forgive me. It's a very similar. It's very similar to that. Okay, now. Oh, and by the way, that skyhook also doubles as your melee weapon, which you can also perform executions on people when they're low on health. The game shows an indicator that it shows like a skull near their head. Although it's sometimes hard to see, once you know what you're looking for, it's pretty simple, and you can execute people sometimes for benefits and whatnot. Damn, it's so warm in my room. Even the water tastes weird. Second of all, we have throughout the game, to give it a more RPG sort of feel and, add more customization to your character, you can equip various pieces of clothing that give you certain abilities. So, like, for example, there might be a hat that will give you, a 40% chance to automatically reload your weapon so you won't have to do it yourself. And then there might be, like, some boots that, like, let you jump from these rails and then cause damage to people. There might be something that gives you health upon executing someone. It's all this kind of stuff that, adds these little various, how do you say it? It tweaks the gameplay. It can make it a little bit different, a little bit original, okay? So definitely that, I think, is a very good benefit to the game. Also, your partner, Elizabeth, that follows you around the game, is sort of there as the anti-first-person shooter element, okay? And what I mean by that is typically in a first-person shooter game, like, I don't know, this is a bad example, but like Fallout, like all these other games, if you like run out of ammo or any of these sort of abilities or whatnot, basically you're gonna have to scavenge for them yourself. And during a gunfight, that can be pretty difficult, obviously, because hell, oh my god, hell, you're busy dodging fire from all these people, and it's, again, you're trying to scavenge and keep yourself replenished. That can be very difficult, and in some games, hell, it can be outright annoying. It can be a very, I'd say, bad part of the game where you're constantly low on everything, and you can't find the time to break away and actually get what you need, get what you want. So I think that Elizabeth, she'll throw you salts, which are used to replenish your vigors, your abilities that I talked about earlier. She'll throw you a new gun if you get low on ammo. And she'll also throw you health kits if you're low on health. She'll basically throw you whatever you're low on just to make sure, just to top you off and keep you on your game. So now, it's not like every time you run low, she's going to toss you something, but it's fairly frequently, and with a great frequency, that she'll toss you something. And when she does, she'll she'll call out to you and say, hey, I found this, and hey, you need this. And then all you have to do, she'll also toss you money, by the way. All you have to do is press whatever the action button is, and you'll automatically catch it. And then what's actually pretty cool is they automatically turn you back to whichever direction you were facing, which I think is a nice little gameplay mechanic, so you're not disoriented whenever you turn to face her to catch this. So definitely Elizabeth. Also, the game is supposed to be like an escort style mission, and I know a lot of people have played, escort style games, like Resident Evil 4 is a good example, like Dead Rising, and basically all these other kinds of games where your partner and the person you're escorting is basically a walking meat shield with a gigantic target over his or her head. And in this game, that's not the case. Elizabeth, during combat, is invincible. You only have to worry about fighting yourself. Fighting for yourself and making sure that you don't die. So that you don't have to worry about that, which in some cases, like, that would be the bigger nuisance of a game, having to constantly worry about someone who's not going to fight back, make sure they're safe, and keep them protected. Here, you don't have to worry about that. Elizabeth is automatically going to be safe, and she's going to constantly feed you supplies. Now, does it make the game kind of easy? I think so. In fact, I think I beat the game without dying, or I think I died once or so, and it was a relatively smooth ride from beginning to end. So maybe you could say that the difficulty curve isn't forgiving and isn't that much, but ultimately, is the game still very enjoyable to play? I think so. I think that there's a lot of stuff in this game that I've never really experienced before in a game, and especially when it comes to the story, which I'm about to hit on next. You know, there's a lot of stuff in this game that I have not experienced before, and well, let's face it, I've played a first-person shooter before, but there's different twists on it that, you know, because I never played a Bioshock game before, I've never really experienced something like this. So I think that's good. You know, they not only took something that was already done from previous Bioshock games, which Bioshock by itself is, you know, very different as opposed to most other games, and then they tweaked it some more. Now, let's move on to the story of Bioshock. The story of Bioshock is relatively straightforward on the surface, okay? Now, when you start the game, you're playing as Booker DeWitt in 1912, a man who has racked up considerable debt with a group of people, and his only way to pay them off is to travel to the flying city of Columbia and retrieve a girl from a group of people from this city who is basically revered as a god, okay? And he travels to this city. This is basically his last chance to redeem himself, or otherwise unspecified consequences will befall him. And once he gets to Columbia, you know, you find this massive city above this, you know, above the skyline. All this unique stuff happens up here, and then it pretty much goes downhill from here. There's a lot of twists and turns in the story. There's a lot of really ambiguous moments, choices that you have to make. There's a lot of times where there's, you know, deeper meanings and stuff, and there's a lot of in fact, one of the tensions of the game is the racial struggle between the colored people of Columbia, which is this floating city, and, you know, the upstanding rich white people. And you would think that you would basically be supporting this uprising of colored people. Well, I don't want to give away too much, but just know that not everything, you know, in this aspect and other aspects of the game is as it seems, okay? And I think that definitely where this game shines the most has to be the story and the setting. Hell, I think this water is hotter than I am. But without a doubt, there's a lot of stuff to be had in this story. There's a lot of interesting stuff. So if you're willing to sit down and, you know, willing to think about the story and, you know, have it, you know, scratch around and poke around in your brain, I don't think you can go wrong with this game. You know, there's a lot of substance, I should say. There's a lot of deeper meanings, and especially the ending of the game is going to throw you for a loop. So it's good, okay? And I think that they definitely put a lot of design into not only the story, but just other parts of the game. Now, graphics, which is, you know, the segment I touch on the least, graphics, they're good. Obviously, I don't think they wanted to do the whole hyper-realistic version of this game, but I think that, you know, for the style that they went for, it's decent, it's good, and that's all I'm going to say about it. Soundtrack-wise, I think the game is actually... it does a good job of adding to the atmosphere of the game, and that's really where this game excels. It's not just, you know, not just the story, you know, the plot and all that, and the characters, which are very well done, to say the least, but the fact that the atmosphere feels so good, okay? And so it just blew me away. And to be honest, I'm grateful that I played this game. I'm, in fact, very glad I played it now. Even though I'm almost 2 months late, I would have initially played this in July, which I decided against doing. So I think that 2K Games and all the people that worked on this game, they definitely did a good job with it. Now, some of the stuff I didn't like, as I've already mentioned, the difficulty curve can seem kind of hazy and almost, you know, lackluster at times. Although that's not to say I didn't have, you know, some close calls, but I was, you know, at some points I was just basically being constantly fed a steady stream of supplies and basically butchering my way through anyone who stood in front of me. Now, the other thing that I don't really like is, other than the story, there's not really much to this game. Like, once you've played the story, that's pretty much it. There's no challenge mode, there's no multiplayer, and basically some people might even say, you know, okay, I played the story and that's kind of it. There's nothing really much for me to play left on this game, and that's a great experience, but, you know, there's nothing else to it. But for what I have to say, this will probably be one of the best story-based experiences you'll have all year. So I am, surprisingly, when I was going through my head as to what I was going to give this game, you know, when I was planning out my verdict, I ended up saying, wow, here's a game where they definitely put a lot of work into it. This is definitely one of the better, games that I've played this year. And, my score for this game is definitely going to be unexpected. Even I didn't expect this game to be that good. I expected this game to be another generic, oh, it's hyped up, and this game is, they basically, like most games that come out, like Halo, like Battlefield, like Call of Duty, like all these other mainstream games, I expected it to be overly hyped and, not deserving the rating at all that it was given. And, all these awards are basically, people who are either paid off or don't know any better assigning these awards to these games. I have to say that for the most part, Bioshock Infinite probably deserves 70 to 80% of the credit that it gets. It's a very good game. It's, as I said, it's probably going to be one of the better games that I played this year. Better new games that I played this year. And so what would I give this game, to wrap this up fairly quickly for a verdict? What would I give Bioshock Infinite? I would give Bioshock Infinite the second highest rating I have ever given to a game on my verdict so far. I'm going to give it a 93 out of 100. And I believe that they deserve this rating. I think that they definitely worked hard for it. They definitely put a lot of emphasis into this game. They definitely tried to, push the limits of what they could do with Bioshock. And I can appreciate that. I can respect that. And I can respect the fact that they also not only had a pretty good voice acting cast of various people I know from all these different places, but just in general, they did a lot of work with this. And again, like other games, like Tomb Raider, like, all these other games that they put so much emphasis into this, like Metal Gear, like StarCraft, I can respect that, and I can see that, and I think this game deserves the rating that it got. Now what? I really don't know what else to say. Like, there's nothing bad that I can really say about this game. There's no glaringly hideous flaws I can assign to this game, like, a lot of the games that I've been reviewing lately. The last game that I really enjoyed, reviewing so much was StarCraft and Tomb Raider, But I have to say that other than StarCraft and Metal Gear, this game, Metal Gear Rising to be specific, this game definitely deserved the rating it got. So I'm SpraynPray1000. This is a fairly short review. I'm really just trying to hurry this up so I can get on with Resident Evil Revelations, which is the next game I'm playing. In fact, I'm going to start it very soon. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys later. So take care.